Hey guys, this is Mike Alamari, President of Pacific Farm Management and proud member of the Ag Center. We're very excited to give you guys our 2023 pistachio production estimate for Ag Center News. The last report that the industry has had for a pistachio estimate was actually 2003, so it's been approximately 20 years since a report like this has been available. We've seen these reports in almonds, walnuts, so forth, so we always wondered why was pistachios left out, especially since 2003. Pistachio acreage and production has actually increased fivefold since then. I want to give a special shout out to my field guys in assisting me with this report. They were out busy scouting orchards the past 15 to 20 days. Also want to give a shout out to West Hills Farm Services. They were able to help us out too with this estimate on the west side with their growers. Overall, we believe this is very necessary and vital information for the pistachio industry and to continue the success of the pistachio industry. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about acreage, production, and yield. We're going to get into current trends, the crop progress, which everyone's kind of concerned about, and we're going to wrap it up with marketing conditions. So let's jump right into acreage. Pistachio acreage has grown quite a bit. We've expanded over 5 times the past 20 years, so there's 5 times as much acreage, and production has increased fivefold ever since the last report in 2003. Just in the past 8 years alone, bearing acreage of pistachios has doubled. So based off current Land IQ reports, we estimate the 2023 bearing pistachio acreage to be 448,750, so just a notch under 450,000 acres. Again, back in 2015, we were just dealing with about 240,000 acres of bearing pistachios. This represents an increase of about 5% from the 2022 bearing acreage. So to come up with that number, we had the 427,179 acres that were bearing last year, plus acreage coming online for 2023 was 26,562. That's going to yield its first crop this year. We actually did decrease acreage just a little bit. We've seen some pullouts, especially here in Madera County. And then there's also acreage that's underwater in Tulare Lake bed that we know is not going to have a harvest this year just because those trees are underwater. Total non-bearing acreage in California, we estimate it to be 121,150. So that brings the total planted acres in California to 569,900. 2026 is going to be the first year the industry is going to have to deal with a 500,000 bearing acreage. So going into production and yield, 2022 was a very, very challenging year for all pistachio growers. The 2023 crop is a significant improvement. We got plenty of chill hours and portions during the winter season. We saw a really good bloom window in April. Bloom was a little bit later, but we'll get into that later. And then we got lots of rain, consistent atmospheric rivers throughout the winter that provided relief for the drought. Last year was plagued by not only the drought, but we also had poor bloom conditions. Aside from that, fuel, water, labor, fertilizer, and chemical prices were through the roof. Most of those costs doubled last year. So last year was a very challenging year for pistachio growers to be profitable. We had 2 successful production years in 2020 and 2021 where both crops were over 1 billion pounds. We had 1.042 billion pounds in 2020 and 1,153,000,000 pounds in 2021. 2022, again, due to the poor conditions, our final production only came in at 878.7 million pounds. So that's a decrease from 2021 of about maybe 20% or so. The average yield for 2020 and 2021, we both saw it over 2,800 pounds. And unfortunately, last year, it was just a hair over 2,000 pounds. This year, again, significant improvement. We actually estimate the crop yield to be 3,125 pounds. So with the bearing acreage, we estimate final production to be just a notch over 1.4 billion pounds in 2023. This would be the 3rd billion-pound crop that pistachio industry has ever seen, following 2020 and 2021. This will also be the record year for pistachios, as 2021 was the largest year on record with 1.1 billion, and now we're dealing with 1.4 billion. The average yield for the past 10 years is just about 2,500 pounds, but if we leave out the 2015 year, which many industries seen as just a catastrophic year. We had a poor chill during the 2014-2015 winter, extreme drought during that same period, and then we also saw poor bloom conditions during that spring as well. So what did that lead to? We had huge blocks of orchards that were completely blank, where the nut never actually filled the kernel. So now let's talk about current trends. In past decades, pistachio production has always been known to have alternate bearing crops. The prior notion was always we would see a fluctuation year to year on final production, with even number years being represented by heavy production, and odd number years would actually be lighter production. We've seen that trend from as far back as we can go in the 70s and 80s, all the way up until about 2010, and even since 2010, it's still been off and on, just not as consistent as the prior years. We believe that this notion can no longer be represented in terms of final production for two reasons. The first is we have 400,000 acres of new pistachios that have been planted in the past 20 years. Again, since the last report came out, we've increased fivefold. 16 out of those 20 years, we've had 15,000 new acres come online each of those years. Some years are as high as 35,000 acres, and then there's only a few years in between where it's slightly under 15,000. So a lot of acreage coming online every single year. So whenever you see acreage coming online every single year, obviously if they're alternate bearing, there's going to be some that came in that's going to have a heavy crop on a odd number year, and there's stuff that's coming in with the even number stuff that's going to play into those production numbers. But again, more acreage coming online each year, even and odd, is going to create slightly more consistency in pistachio production. The second reason is we've seen a huge shift in varieties. So prior to 2008, before commercially available, most growers would plant the Kerman variety. In recent years, we've seen 80 to 90% of plantings being either Lost Hills or Golden Hills, which don't have that alternate bearing trait like the Kerman variety does. So most pistachios you see where the trees are probably older than 10, 15 years are likely Kermans, and any of the younger stuff you see are likely Golden Hills or Lost Hills, the majority of it being Golden Hills. Again, they don't have the alternate bearing trait as heavy as the Kermans, so they're a lot more consistent. We currently believe that this year's acreage, 35% of it will be either Lost Hills or Golden Hills. And we expect by 2028 that number to be about 50%. So by 2028, 50% of the crop will be either the Lost Hills or Golden Hills variety, and the other 50% from the Kermans. Not too many growers planting Kermans, but there are a few guys out there that continue to do so. So now let's jump into crop progress and where we see the 2023 crop being at. Currently, we estimate the crop to be about 10 to 20 days behind last year. This was due to bloom occurring 7 to 10 days behind last year because we had a cool winter and a cool start to spring. And then followed by that, we actually have had slightly below temperatures for both May and June. As of today, June 23rd, Fresno has yet to experience its first 100-degree day. Usually the average is around June 4th. Last year, we actually saw an almost 100-degree day. I think it hit about 97 or 98 in some places the first week of April. And again, that's why 2022 was a hard year for pistachio growers, because right in the heart of bloom, we had a 100-degree day that really threw the crop off and led to a poor setting of the nuts. But we didn't hit in Fresno, we didn't hit an official 100-degree day until May, I believe it was late May 25th or May 27th for last year. So this year, we don't expect to see a 100-degree day until possibly early June. That would beat the second record on hand in the past 40, 50 years of 2005, where the first 100-degree day occurred on June 30th. And then the record is actually 1998, where the first 100-degree day occurred July 16th. I don't think we'll get to July 16th. I think we'll fall sometime in the first week of July to have a 100-degree day. So we expect harvest to begin later than last year. Last year, we saw some growers start around the 20th to 25th of August. This year, we expect harvest to begin maybe around the 1st to 5th of September. Processing capacity will dictate the success of the 2023 crop, as processors will be dealing with the largest crop ever by over 20%. And, there's capacity issues with pistachios. Yeah, after you harvest them, got to get them into the silo. So we know guys are going to be with their hands full, so we expect possibly some guys to get started a little bit earlier just so they don't run into an issue with capacity. Due to the delayed crop, nut fill stage has yet to occur. So this is when the embryo in the pistachio begins to fill the kernel or the shell. Usually this is whenever we can start surveying blanks, and usually by the end of mid to late July, we can actually find a percentage of what we expect blanks to be out in the field. We don't think we'll reach that stage until possibly the first week of August. Again, this is because of the slightly longer winter, again, a lot of rain. But we don't believe blanking should be an issue this year just because we had a lot of rain and then we actually had good conditions during bloom. So ideal conditions should not lead to blanking. It's just later than normal. But worrying most guys that we've talked to, they're really concerned about fall rains. Not only pistachio growers, almond growers, raisin growers, wine grape growers, cotton, tomato, any type of crop that you're growing that you're harvesting in late summer, guys are concerned with fall rains. So now we know that there's going to be a very strong El Nino for the upcoming winter. Usually El Nino corresponds to warm winter and a lot of rain. So we went back and we looked back at the last 3 strong El Nino seasons that scientists have predicted. The last one being in 2015-2016, the 2015-2016 winter. That year we saw just above average rainfall. I think we were about 110% of normal. 1997, 1998, which was a really strong Nino. I remember it when I was a kid. That's the year after Fresno saw its first snow. That year we saw 165% of average rainfall for that year. And then 1982, 1983, many know that's the wettest season on record. Again, that was a very, very strong El Nino year. So that's in terms of precipitation in the wintertime. Now, if we look at the preceding September-October window for those 3 years, this is what we found during those strong El Nino events. In 1982, we had a huge rain event in late September, and we had below average temperatures for September and October. That's compared to averages from 1960 to 2020. 1997, we saw below average precipitation for those 2 months of September and October, and we've seen a lower temperature for September and a higher temperature for October, again, when compared to average for 1960 to 2020. 2015, the most recent, we saw average precipitation for September and October. You always get a little bit of rain in those months, but we actually experienced a lot higher temperatures during both those months than the normal. I believe we were anywhere from 3 to 5 degrees above normal for those 2 months only. So if it's like the last El Nino, we should be okay. If it's like the 1997 El Nino, we might be okay. But if it's like the 1982-83 El Nino, you can count on rain and you can count on an early cold start to the fall. But overall, we hope ideal weather conditions will continue so growers can have a successful harvest. Aside from that, it's always good to know that the potential next winter, you're going to have average or slightly above average rainfall. So that's at least hopeful for many growers to relieve us of the drought. So let's finally get into marketing conditions currently for pistachios. 2022, prior to the harvest in 2022, we actually saw the largest carryover year in year for pistachios. Again, that probably likely led to the decrease in pricing for growers in 2022. So aside from the poor yields, growers actually got less money for their crop last year. Going into the 2022-2023 marketing year, we had approximately 350 million pounds going into carryover. As of the latest marketing report, which closed May 31st, 2023, we actually have only 348 million marketable pounds. So as of now, we actually have less pounds than what we had last year at the start of the year. So that's pretty good. We still have 3 months left of shipments. We anticipate the final carryover to be only 100 to 150 million pounds. If that were to hold true, that would actually be the smallest carryover since 2020. Again, that's very good considering we're going to be dealing with a 1.4 billion pound crop. Marketers and processors, again, will have their hands full, not only with capacity, but marketing as well. 2022-2023 will actually likely set the record for shipments for pistachios. We should be able to hit the 900 million pound mark of pistachios that sold during the season. But with the 1.4 billion crop coming in and the carryover of maybe 100, 150 million pounds, you're looking at an inventory for the 2023-2024 year of about 1.5 to 1.6 billion pounds. So marketers will need to be motivated to sell like never before to ensure that growers get a decent price on their crop. So we're looking forward to harvest. Again, hopefully those fall rains and those fall cold temperatures do hold off for a little bit so everyone could be at ease. We'd like to thank the administrative committee of Pistachios for all the data they were able to provide on their website. Extremely good resources. Thanks to my field team for assisting me in scouting all these orchards and trying to get this estimate done. And again, the folks from West Hills Farm Service, they were able to take care of some of the west side for us and get those estimates in. So let's have a successful harvest, everybody. Thank you.